Hey, sir, how are you?
Good. I'm great. I'm good. How about you?
I'm doing really well, thank you. Feeling good about some stuff. New Year's upon us, and as I mentioned yesterday, um, first few months of the year are always the biggest years for base camp, and so far we're only a day and a half in, but it's absolutely proving to be true. So that feels great so far, especially with base camp 3 just out. So things are looking good. It's always an exciting time of the year. It's like a great time to try some new stuff and to get going on some new initiatives and to we had a good lunch today, just chatting about things we could each do in our own products, and it's fun. I like this time of year.
Yeah, you got me looking at analytics now too, like just before our meeting today, and it was like our web analytics we're beating our day averages. Like web traffic's up, it looks like. Our retention is up. I'm happy. Things are in a nice spot at the moment.
And just to be public, I made $100 bet with you that I will update the 37signals.com site by tomorrow. Because I told you I would do that like a few weeks ago. So I'm going to update that tomorrow or by tomorrow, by the show tomorrow.
Awesome.
So we get a little bit of a better shout out for High Rise up there.
Awesome. Thanks, dude.
Yeah, of course.
You mentioned something really interesting that we don't have to go too much into, but yesterday's show you had mentioned paying attention to FanDuel.
Yeah.
You said something really insightful yesterday that really has now got me brainstorming, but about how you've been attracted to FanDuel because it compresses an experience that you wish you could have kind of achieved from normal like sports fantasy leagues, right? I mean, I'm putting words in your mouth, I guess, but it's like you really enjoy kind of that one day experience because you don't have the time or the attention to spend a whole year on a sports league. So you get to experience this thing and get good at it in like one day, right? Is that kind of the crux of one of the things you're kind of enjoying about FanDuel?
Yeah, I mean, it's a couple things. Just so people know who are watching, FanDuel is like a fantasy sports game app, whatever, and you can basically play one day at a time. In the past, historically, 10 years ago, if I was doing fantasy sports, I'd have to like draft a team, and you go to like draft day and you draft a team for the whole season and the whole thing. This lets me like every day I can just make a new team and just play for that night's games. And what I liked about it was that, first of all, it takes a lot of the pressure off. It's like I can sort of toe dip basically. Like I can throw it's cost money. So like I deposited $25 and I played like a $5 game. You could play like a $2 game for one night, right? It's cheaper than going to the movies. It's cheaper than almost renting a movie on iTunes or something like that. So pick a team, see how I do, and then like I can learn. I can look and go, oh shit, I made some mistakes here. Like I picked some players that were injured tonight, and I should really pay more attention to who's injured. And then I do some research about who's injured the next night, and I don't pick those players again. And I do better. And then I look at it again and go, oh, I need to look at who's playing who a little bit more, because certain players have better games against other teams, so that I can continue to get better every night. I can iterate on my own skills because the game allows me to do that. It actually encourages me to do that. And it kind of also at the same time for their business, it kind of sucks me in a bit more, which is probably good for their business. But I love that I can actually get better at what I'm doing versus doing a big draft in the beginning of the season. And like, it's kind of like when you pick the March Madness teams, you do the bracket or whatever, like you pick them and then you're kind of stuck with them. And you're like, oh man, my team got knocked out early. I'm screwed. It's over. Now I got to wait until next year versus like, I can wait till tomorrow.
Yep.
And do it again. So I like that. I really like that. I thought that was, I enjoy it more, to be honest.
Yeah.
And I believe there are longer term games you can play. There's like a whole bunch of different kind of games you can play. It's cool. I really dig it.
Yeah. The thing that got me thinking about the thing that's been kind of now I'm brainstorming on is like that's really interesting, that experience of, here's this long-term thing. Like obviously like people really dig, fantasy sports leagues. Now someone's figured out how to give you that experience in a much shorter little nugget. I'm curious, like how I can bring that now to the product, because I see the same type of thing in something like High Rise. Like you use this tool, you come in here to organize yourself. You come in here to, get everybody on the same page with, who you're talking to. Hopefully you're going to end up using it to like close more deals or make a lot more customers happy because like, you got to them faster and you're giving them better support or whatever. But I'm curious, but that's a long-term gain. That's like a long-term, that's thinking long-term. And I'm curious, how we can get people an experience that's like, you just signed up, here's something awesome we can give you in like an hour or today. Here's a nugget of help. It's just interesting because we don't have that. You sign up, you can import some stuff, but I don't think you're going to come away today feeling like, oh man, I really just improved some really cool shit today. It's going to take a while. So it got me thinking of things like, a lot of people in High Rise send email, for example. I'm curious if hey, do you send an email to a bunch of contacts? Can you upload that email that you are constantly sending? We'll edit it. We'll look for things that might cause problems with spam or bouncing or whatever. Just some sort of value thing that we could do today. I don't know. Now I'm jazzed about trying to figure that out because I feel like people would get really excited if we could make them happy right now in an hour.
I like that idea a lot. You could also, I mean, this is just off the top of my head. I hadn't thought about this for more than 3 seconds here, which is you could say, don't add all your contacts to High Rise, add one. Who are you going to call tomorrow? Or who's your next call or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And let's start there. So let's set up one person and let's call them or call it whatever, or let's get an email from them, whatever it is. Let's log that call. Now let's set up follow-up when you want to call them next.
Yep.
And once you've done that, it's okay, now let's add some more people. But the point is let's walk through one experience, make it successful. And then you can a cool thing you could do would be to send a notification to yourself or to that customer 3 weeks later and go, hey, without looking, can you remember what you talked to Jim Smith about on January 3rd? And they'll probably be like, no. And you'd be like, well, check it out in High Rise because it's still here. You can kind of connect the dots and go, oh, now I see the value here, which is I had a conversation with someone. I'd forgotten what we talked about, but I logged it in High Rise, so it's not gone. High Rise remembers what we talked about. I don't need to remember what we talked about. High Rise remembers what we talked about.
Yep.
And that's actually something that we talked about a little bit today, which is, by the way, I get jazzed about this. This is fun shit. I like this stuff. We talked about today, one of the really nice things about Know Your Company, the product Know Your Company, which is at knowyourcompany.com, is that they've honed in on the fundamental value proposition there, which is by the way, Know Your Company is a tool for CEOs to poll their company on a regular basis to find out what's on people's minds about how we're doing. Are we dropping the ball on anything? Are there things we should be doing that we're not doing? Are there things we're doing poorly? Are there promises we've made that we haven't kept? All that kind of stuff. And the whole thing at Know Your Company is don't be the last to know. Because that's what ends up happening as a CEO is you end up, as your company grows, you become the last to know. So don't be the last to know. So we're talking today about what would that be for High Rise? And even 12 years in, I'm struggling to figure out what it is for Basecamp. It's a hard thing to do. But it's something forget. It's almost you can forget because High Rise remembers, or something like that. Or I still like this idea of be prepared. The idea that next time you talk to someone, you'll be prepared for that call versus having to repeat yourself about what we talked about last time or forgetting what I said last time and then making the same pitch I made the week before or something. So anyway, slowing it down, maybe you get someone set up one contact, go through one call with them, go through one email with them, log that, and then invite them to add other people. And then 2 weeks later, so, hey, do you remember what we talked? Do you remember what you talked to, Sally Jones about on January 5th? If not, here's a direct link to it in High Rise. And then you can start to develop, close the loop on the value of High Rise.
Yeah. I like that too, carving. Yeah. I like all of it, but I like that approach of carving off just one person. Let's have a winning experience with just this one contact. Cause at the moment, I think we try to I mean, we don't even do it aggressively, but we encourage you to let's get started by importing a bunch of people. And just that's just asking for trouble, right off the bat. It's information overload. I like that. That's interesting.
Totally. We do the same thing in Basecamp, which is something we're going to be changing soon, which is that when you sign up for Basecamp, when you make your first base camp, we encourage you to like invite a bunch of people. And something we've seen and we've known about for a while now after doing some customer interviews is that people don't want to invite people to an empty base camp yet, or even invite them to a base camp with a few things in it yet, because they want to set it up first. They want to like add a few lists, add some files and documents, add some stuff. So when they invite people in, it'll be like prepared. It's like the table is set. It's like you want to invite someone over for dinner and you want the table to already be set. You don't want to be setting up the table after. So what we currently do is we currently encourage you to make a new base camp and invite people really quickly. And then they have this like blank, it's not blank screen, but it's like a blank experience essentially because there's nothing in there yet. And we're kind of accelerating it too quickly. It might be better to slow down a little bit, which is sort of, it's interesting because we always think like we got to make it faster, cut out the steps. But in some cases, you actually want to slow it down. There's a great book by Paco Underhill called Why We Buy, which is one of the best books I've ever read on the psychology of buying and purchasing and why we buy things. And he talks a lot about how in stores, in grocery stores specifically, when you walk into a grocery store, you don't walk right into the store. There's usually this special space that has some carts, and it's basically like a threshold space that you don't walk into the store. You walk into this other space first so you can transition from the outside to the inside. It's basically what a foyer is in a more formal home. It's like just this moment to come in from the outside. You open the door and you're not in someone's kitchen yet. You're like in this receiving space. And I feel like that is a very important concept, and we don't pay enough attention to it in software. We're always trying to get people going really quickly. Get them going, get them going. Right. You know what I mean? And one of the things we've done in the new Basecamp and Basecamp 3 is now we step people through a sample Basecamp first. So they sign up and they have to walk through a sample first. So we only have one. We're about to launch a second sample within a week or so, hopefully. We're going to be doing more and more samples frequently. But the idea being that you can at least orient yourself at some level to sort of play around without worrying about screwing something up and inviting people too early, whatever. But I think we have a lot of work to do still on figuring out like what the foyer is. What is the receiving space? And I kind of like this idea of slowing down and go, hey, let's work with one contact here. Let's work with one. Let's work with one for a while and see how that feels. And then you can step them through the whole thing, and you don't run into any importing snafus because there's really not much to import. You don't run into this like list situation where you've got this long list of people. Now you got to search for someone because they're not A, B, or C, and they're way down the list. And just like there's one. So I think there's something maybe neat about that. I mean, it's who knows, but I think there's something to that. That reminds me of like getting back to the point, which is fantasy sports being a whole season or one night. Do it one night at a time. Do it one contact at a time to start and see how that goes. Just an idea.
Yeah, totally.
You want to take a couple questions?
Sure.
I'm going to just take this one really quick because this is an easy one. Why blackboards rather than whiteboards? So both Nathan and I are in the office here, and we have blackboards on our walls. I don't know if you can see that. Basically, I hate whiteboards. I just hate them, and I hate them because first of all, I don't like the way they look flat out. Like I just don't like a shiny white surface ever. I like matte surfaces for the most part anyway. But also I don't like how they show artifacts. Like they're very hard to really, truly, completely, thoroughly clean. You often see these like ghosted images on whiteboards. If people don't clean them after a while, you see this like white, this like pink or like light yellow ghosted images. I just don't like it at all. I also just don't like the sort of the squeak on them. I like chalkboards because they're more they're more like fundamental to me. It's just like this. They have a more of a gravity to them, and they're definitely dustier, and there's some real downsides to that. But they just feel a lot more fundamental and like elemental to me than a whiteboard with markers. I don't know, and like ghosted images that look like shit, and they're always sort of reflecting wavy stuff. It just aesthetically, I don't like them. I like dusty chalkboards. I like the dust. I like that about them. So anyway, that's no other reason than that. It's not like they're better or worse. It's more of an aesthetic decision. And part of the office design here we have is that here, I'll show you guys. Is that we have a lot of let's see here. I'm going to so a lot of our walls here are, let's see, how am I going to figure this out? A lot of our walls actually are chalkboard walls. So I don't know if you guys can see any of this stuff. Hang on a second. Let me step back. Yeah, I think there's like no light in this room right now, so this doesn't work very well. Anyway, there's a lot of black walls in our office, and part of that is because, and this is all chalkboard. This is like this huge long chalkboard wall. If you can kind of see that, it's like 60 feet long. It slides and stuff. We've got some like artwork, like BC3 artwork on the wall. They're also magnetic. So we have a bunch of drawings we made for Basecamp, and these are just little magnets. So they're magnetic as well, which is really nice. But aesthetically, I like darker colors and spaces because I think they're just flat out cozier. I think that bright white everywhere it's cold and a bit sterile. And if you have drywall, which we have also, that's enough white for me. So I prefer to have sort of black and a textured surface. Anyway, that's the answer. That's the answer. And by the way, this is actual real chalkboard. It's a real magnetic chalkboard. It's not chalkboard paint. Chalkboard paint does not have the same feel as this. So anyway, probably wasn't worth spending 15 minutes on that.
No, it's cool. I think a lot of people are curious. A lot of people are curious about the design of this office. So no, it's good.
Yeah, I should figure out how to maybe tomorrow or something. We'll give a tour. I'd like to give maybe a tour of the office space and walk through the reasons why it's built out the way it is. I just have to figure out a better way to show it off because holding my laptop up is sort of awkward. But anyway, we'll figure that out. Cool. I don't know. Does Blab have is there an app? I don't have an app for Blab. Is there? And if there is, maybe I can use my other camera on my phone. Yeah, there is. Okay, good. So everyone's saying yes. So I'll use my phone tomorrow and use the rear camera and just sort of walk around and show the office off. Maybe we can talk about that because actually office architecture is a really interesting thing, and I don't think a lot of companies put enough thought into how their office is actually built around how they work, especially around acoustics. So we'll talk about that tomorrow. Cool. Do you want to take this? You want to take this other question here?
Sure.
Nathan?
About what you're both doing when it comes to product UX process, and how does that transition to the development process? I mean, it's. I don't know. We don't have a rigorous process. The things that, and we've talked a lot, we talk a lot about on the show. Like there's a couple things we balance. Like, one, we've got just a ton of feedback, and we have a lot of vocal customers. We talk to our customers constantly, about the stuff they want improved. I think some of the stuff that maybe look the closest to process are a couple things. Like, one, I obsess about trying to get us to use the product more. So when I came into Highrise, some of the key things that I wanted to do were to get us features in Highrise that we were going to find valuable ourselves. So I felt like Highrise was always like kind of close to a help desk solution. There were definitely a lot of people that were using things like cases in Highrise to track, people that needed problems solved or things solved, but it wasn't quite good enough yet to kind of run a full help desk from. And so we were using another solution to do a help desk. So a big aspect of trying to improve Highrise, some of our product process was like, what can we do to get us using the product? And it was simply like, let's build a better kind of way to run a help desk out of Highrise. So we built something called Good Morning. That's kind of a group inbox that shows us people who are writing into us that need answers. So for me, a lot of it is how can we as a team use Highrise more, and bring that stuff to Highrise. And again, like, Jason's pointing out UX being user experience. Totally. I mean, he was asking about product also, but for user experience, I mean, there's the top thing on my mind to improve the user experience is to live and breathe the product ourselves. We're the first ones who find problems with the product. If we wait until we're doing user experience interviews, it's usually far too late. A bug has been going on for quite some time before we uncover it, say, in an interview. So it's important to me that, you know, we're living and breathing the product. And yeah, so that's one big part of our process. The other thing I obsess about too is eliminating steps, just focusing on where people have a lot of steps to get something done and try to remove as many as possible. Yeah.
The thing I'm most interested in these days is around this is really I'll answer that in a second. This next one that just came in is understanding the subtle things that matter to people. I feel like it's really easy to think that it's about like this feature or that feature, but often it seems to be like the subtle things that irritate somebody. And those can be the things that make or break a product for somebody. It's like, I'm not talking about like polish. I'm not talking about like animations or that stuff, but just like, it's really annoying that I can't sort it by this. Like, out of all the things you can do, the fact that you just can't like sort it this way irritates you enough to say like, I can't sort it this way. This is my data and I can't look at it the way I want to look at it or something like that. Like, I'm really curious about those things. And I think what's important is to always look for the emotion. Where's the energy in someone's complaint? Is it like, sometimes I'll get emails from people and they'll complain about something, or they won't like something, or they have a question about something. And then sometimes, and that's fine. And then other times I'll get stuff that people are super pumped about something we did. And other times I get something that there's a lot of angst around a decision we made or a feature that doesn't exist. And I'll pay a little bit more attention to those in some ways, because if someone cares that much, there's something really fundamental to them. And I want to at least understand what it is. If they're being unreasonable and rude, that's another thing entirely. But if there's energy and emotion around something, there's usually a real meaning and a story behind it that's really good to get at. So I tend to kind of look for those things. And a lot of times it comes into like these little small subtle things. Like, can I move this where I want to? Like, one of the things we built into Basecamp 3 is Basecamp 3 has a series of 6 tools in every Basecamp to start with, and you can reorder them any way you want. So in Basecamp 2, things were stacked. You had this like stack of tools. Discussions always at the top, then to-dos, then text docs and files, whatever. And you couldn't move them around. So it was like this rigid thing. In Basecamp 3, you can move pretty much everything around and park them in different ways. And you can make folders and put things in folders and just drag things in or out of folders and kind of like have some flexibility around how you want to structure things. And that came from people. People didn't ask specifically for those features. It's just a matter of hearing where your emotion is around, I don't feel like I have control over this. And then you're like, okay, what does control mean? And you start to unpack a little bit and understand, make some places where you can sort of relinquish some of the decision-making and let people kind of mess around themselves. So it's sort of abstract answer, but I want to throw that out. Let me take this one here. Jason wants to know, do we make our devs do support? Every single person at Basecamp does customer service. Everyone. So me, David, everybody here, people who are new, people who have been here forever, we all do it. What we do is we rotate one day. So every day we have something called EOS, everyone on support. So every day somebody that is not on the support team is assigned to the support team, and they do support for that day. So we have about 48, 49 people in the company. Let's call it less than a quarter of those are on support. So like the remaining 30 or so, whatever, who are not support, 35 or so who are not on support. So you basically do support once a month, every month and a half, because we don't do it on the weekends this way. So like once every month and a half, once every 2 months or something, we each work a full day on support and do tickets. And then also our developers are rotating on an on-call schedule. So they are available to help support. There's always a programmer available who's normally working on product who shifts over to support to help them with fixing root cause issues that are complicated. So we always have a developer on that as well. But everyone in the company does tickets one day every month or so. And then there's always an on-call programmer who's available to the support team that's dedicated to the support team to solve root cause issues. That's how we do it here. Nathan?
Yeah, I mean, we're not that much different. I mean, we have a tiny team, so it's like we all have to kind of chip in when we have one guy, an awesome customer support guy named Chris Gallo. He is almost 100% on customer support, but he has to not be on customer support sometimes on weekends and holidays and stuff. And so when he's not around, someone else has to chip in. So it's either Lynette or me. And I, still do a ton of development. And so, yeah, Jason, like when I'm answering tickets, my initial reaction is usually not to answer the ticket, except if it's to fix something, so I don't ever have to answer this ticket again. And so, yes, everybody doing support is awesome, because it all gets us fixing stuff and improving things that we don't want to have to keep answering over and over and over again.
And even beyond that, like, that's totally true, because when it really annoys you, then then you really tend to fix things. It's just like a human thing. But also the other reason for it is because not only just to feel frustration and everything, but to also to hear customer language. How do customers describe things and explain things? Because that language should make its way into the product as well. So just being around that is valuable.
Yeah, no. And yeah, it's like the only, I had an interesting post I wrote a while ago. It's something I kind of discovered on Draft. It's like, so, doing Draft got, brought with it a ton of customer support. And a lot of people, I think, if you talk to a lot of customer support organizations, they think about things in terms of, how fast do we close these tickets? Well, I started doing something there that was very counter to that idea of, like, let's close tickets as fast as possible. After every time I solved the customer's problem, or I thought I was solving a customer's problem or answering it correctly, I would ask them a very open-ended question at the end, which was simply like, does that help? And it was very direct, and it was very, like, forward, because most of the time when you get a response to a customer support issue, it's usually like, here, take a look at this and this and this, have a great day. It's like, hopefully you don't write me again, because hopefully this ticket is closed. But I actually was trying to encourage people to keep the ticket open. Like, let's keep talking. Like, please tell me if this helped you, because if it didn't, I really want to know, and I want you to follow up with me so we can continue to have this dialogue to see if I'm on the right track. And it's when you're a one person supporting lots and lots and lots of people, it's not maybe sustainable for the long term. But when you're trying to uncover things, it's really awesome. I mean, you are inside a conversation with one of your customers. Why kick them off this conversation and then try and do customer interviews or whatever else somewhere else? Like, you've got the conversation open. Like, try and squeeze as much good stuff out of this now as you can. So. It's good not to put these customer support conversations in someone else's court all the time.
I think that's really insightful, and something that it's a behavior we may want to consider here, because we are pretty much currently optimized on response times. We don't optimize as much on response times is one thing, which is valuable regardless, which is like, how quickly do we get back to somebody initially? But I want to make sure that we're not super optimized on the closing ticket speed, because I think you got a great point there. Is that what else can we learn? What else do we need to know? What else? Like, I've been meaning to write this up. I'm going to write this up soon on Medium, on our blog on Signal versus Noise. This idea that, like, the real gold is in the follow-up. The follow-up questions, the second email after something's over, or like, after you tell someone something and they have a follow-up question, that's where the real gold is. That's where you can dig for some deep, deep insights, because it's not surface level stuff anymore. And exposing yourself to that more often, I think, is super valuable. I actually had a chat with the support team about this a couple of years ago, which was at the time, and I understand why we're doing it. There's issues around, props are going up my nose right now. It's very, very weird to have these. There we go. Doing props. I'm doing props. Doing lines of props. So the thing is that it's a good way to get more to like say and then up my nose. Everybody, come on. There we go. Okay, so was like it's a good like initially there's an instinct to push people to like a help site because they can help themselves, and like, first check the help site, then check this, then check this, then check this. And then if you can't get your answer solved, contact us. And we kind of have that set up that way right now. And I understand why we do that. But at some level too, I almost wish, like, our customer service is so good and our team is so great. They're just great. And like, I actually want more customers to interact with them, not fewer. Because those interactions are in many ways competitive advantage for us. Is like when you have a great interaction with somebody that you do not expect to have a great interaction with, that's a game changer in many ways. Like, I like this company. I can trust this company. This is badass, compared to like, I found an answer on the help site, which is great, but like, I don't remember that. It's not memorable because it was an answer. Yeah. Compared to like talking to someone, having a great experience when they weren't expecting one. Because very few people expect great experiences from customer service.
Yep.
That's an expectation you have. And so when you can totally blow that expectation out of the water, it's great. So it's a delicate balance of, how many tickets can you handle reasonably and get back to everybody versus like encouraging interactions. So anyway, just a out loud thought there. But
yep.
Anyway, we've gone kind of long.
Cool.
So we usually try and keep this to about a half hour. So thanks everybody. Sorry we couldn't get to everyone's question. Please come back tomorrow. And when you ask a question tomorrow, if you asked it, we didn't get to you today, just somehow remind us. A cool feature for Blab, by the way, if anyone from Blab is listening, is the ability to mark a question for the next show. Like I've noticed a few times that there's been things on the board that we didn't get to that we wanted to get to, but they're cleared out because, of course, every show starts with a blank slate there. But it would maybe be nice to mark something and say, like, get to this next time. So
that'd be awesome.
Cool.
All
right,
everyone. See
later,
you
everybody.
later. Bye.